So how do we start going about making this project? Well, if I'm using a SciPy editor, I'm just going to leave and go back to all my projects. And I'm going to start a brand new one from scratch. So in here, again, just going to create a brand new project. Unsurprisingly, it's going to be called Caroline Wade. I'm going to make her portfolio. So Caroline Wade, and I'm going to create this one. And just like the last time, we start from scratch. So how do we think about this project? So what I've got in here is some kind of heading. So H1 or a header. I've got a navigation with 2 links inside of here. And then I've got this section on the page with 3 images inside of it. Now, currently I don't have any images or type. We'll come to that in a second. But let's start by adding the text. So instead of doing maybe a header, I'm actually going to keep this as a H1 just because it's kind of like a text element rather than a whole area. I'm just going to put in here Caroline Wade. Now in here, I don't have any paragraph text, so I'm going to remove this paragraph for now, but I do want some kind of navigation up in this top right corner. So I'm going to group these 2 links together. So to do this, I'm going to use a nav tag, and I'm just going to open this up. And just like we had with CSS, when we had things, boxes inside boxes, we're going to put boxes inside boxes here. So in our nav tag, we're going to put an A tag with about. And underneath this, I'm going to do an A tag with, what's the next one? Contact. So contact in here. Now, first thing I need to do is add some links. So where does this A tag go to? I'm going to add a space after the A and add an href, hypertext reference equals in quotes about.html. We're not going to add an about.html, but if you want to, you just need to add a page called about.html. And in here, we've got our contact.html as well. Now, underneath, we're going to add a section, this kind of main section down here, which has 3 images inside of it. So I'm going to add a new section tag, again, just to group these things together. But at the moment, I don't have any images because I haven't added any images to my project. So I've got my assets folder again. I'm just going to open up this second project. Again, I've got my content.txt with some links in here, and I've got my bandingstrange.ttf, image 1, image 2, image 3. Just going to select everything in this assets folder and put it into my project. So I should have 3 images and a font in here as well. So let's add these images to our project. So again, this is content. This time it's not actually a background style. This is the content of the page is an image. So I've got an image tag, and here I've got a source of image 1. Image 1. And then underneath here, what I'm going to put is, unsurprisingly, an image tag. Now, image tags don't have a closed one just because they're an image. They can't put any more content inside of it. So image2.jpg and image3.jpg. There we go. So I've set up the content of the page. I've got basically 1, 2, 3 areas of the page, 1, 2, 3 areas, each with text, 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 image, image, image. So this is kind of what I'd expect. Now, if I look at the page right now, what do I get? I get something like this. And this is a kind of very basic version of the page. This works as a portfolio. So I could link to this and go to this page, but it's not that exciting. So how do I make it a little bit more exciting? So we're going to start styling this up. For now, we're going to not worry about the typography. We'll come on to that a little bit later, but we'll start styling the page up as kind of similar to what we have here. So to style up the page, I need to change my CSS, my style sheets. Which are my style sheets? I've got my base, which does all the reset and kind of stops all the weird old things from happening in the browser. I want to change my style.css. For now, I'm going to ignore my typography, my Arial, 16 pixels, 1.5 line height. Instead, I'm just going to change some of the color. So my background color is, unsurprisingly, it's pure black this time. So #000000, and the text color is, unsurprisingly, white. Now my margin on the page, if we look at the final version, is this content starts halfway down the page, and this area on the left and right and the bottom is always 40 pixels. So I've got something that changes on one side and then something consistent on the other 3. So my margin is 50 VH, it's halfway down the page. Then on each side, on the right is 40, at the bottom is 40, and on the left is 40. So if we look at it now, we'll see this kind of starting down this page. As I scroll down, it's kind of 40 here. We have this width though, but I want this to be the full width of the page. This width is coming from here. So I'm just going to remove that for now. And this now should stretch across the page. There we go. Now the issue that I have is this isn't kind of in the right place. This needs to be up here. These need to be up here. And then when I scroll down the page, these kind of overlap. So there's still a few more things to do. First thing I'm going to do is change my H1. Currently, the font size can stay as it is. We'll come back and fix that. We're going to fix this into position with position fixed in the top corner. So we'll make this at 80 on both. So we should now have this in the right position at all times. There we go. I want the same thing for my nav. I want my nav to be up here. So same kind of idea. I want to pick my nav tag. My nav tag is the thing that kind of groups these two links and pins them to the top corner. So I'm going to pin these to the top corner. Nav is going to be pinned into position, into fixed position, into the top, 80, into the right at 80. Now if I did left, they'd overlap. Obviously we don't want them to overlap. So what we have here is this and this. This kind of makes sense. What I also want to do is have my links being white as well. By default, the links are always going to be blue to make them look like links. So underneath here, what I want to do is select my A tags. So my A tags, what do they need? Well, the color of these links, first of all, needs to be white. So I'm just going to make them white. Color is white. And there we go. I want to get rid of this underline. It kind of sucks. So let's get rid of the underline. That text decoration, we're going to make none. We don't want any underline by default in there. So hopefully now we should see that disappear. Now they kind of look like two words now. So I'm just going to separate them out. So I want to move some space on the left side of each one. So I'm going to push them apart a little bit. I'm going to add some margin. On the top, don't need any margin. On the right, don't need any margin. On the bottom, don't need any margin. On the left, I do need some margin, 30px. So add some space between those. So now we're starting to get something that looks a little bit more like the final one. Ignore the typography, but what I want to do is kind of stick these into position, these images into position as I scroll up and down the page. So as I scroll, they stick in the right place. How do we do that? Well, I'm just going to add some more style to the page. So I'm going to add one more thing in here. What I'm going to do is add IMG for the images. By default, I obviously want them to be width 100%. I want them to be full width of the page. Now the height on the final ones is going to basically stick to the frame of the page. So it's not quite 100% of the page height. It's 100 minus this 40 and minus this 40 area. You can see it on the last one, 40 and 40 here. So this height of this image is going to be, well, it's going to be basically the height of the page minus 80. So I need to do some kind of calculation here. So here I'm going to add calc and then round brackets. In here, I want to do 100 VH, which is the height of the page as it is right now. But I want to minus away 80px. Now the issue that we've got here is sometimes our images might squash down. This one's now squashed because it's not in the right ratio. And as you can see, as I kind of drag this in and out, this kind of looks wrong. But what I want to do is similar to what I have with the background size cover. I want it to kind of cover this instead of it being skewed in this way. So if I'm just going to make that here for now, just to see if it stretches it out or kind of skews it. So what I can do in here is also add in object fit cover. So fit this image in, don't kind of change the aspect ratio, but make it stretch instead. So cut off the edges if it needs cutting off. So now we can see if I kind of stretch this, they do crop at the edges, but they don't skew. They don't kind of change the aspect ratio. So you can see on this final one, this is in the right position, but they don't overlap. How do we make them overlap? Well, there's one new thing we can add in here, which is called position sticky. We want to stick them to the top of the page on scroll. So not fix them, because obviously they'd overlap, but as I scroll down the page, they can only hit 40 at the top of the page. So position is sticky top 40. So this means if I scroll down the page, they hit 40 and then stop. But you might notice that these go behind now, they kind of disappear. The reason for that is the layering. If you look in our HTML, what we'll have is this, then this. So this is the kind of final thing on the page. But what we want to do is actually make these two above section. Now the quick way to do this is again with how it looks, because it's not how it looks, it doesn't look correct at the moment. With a position fixed in H1 and nav, I'm also going to add in one more thing. Z-index is 1. By default, Z-index is 0. I want to lift it a little bit closer to the user, so Z-index is 1 for both of these two things. So now what we should see on our page is these kind of fit into the right position. So this was obviously a very quick way of doing this. So this is our general page setup. Obviously the next thing we need to do is start looking at the typography of the page.